All right, we are back and we have a little bit of a debate. And I think what a better person to have this conversation with other than Milos, considering he was one of the best back in the day in the 90s and he's been through all eras. I haven't. So he could keep me in check and tell me to shut my mouth on this one. But I said to him before the podcast, I go, you know, I feel like we're kind of entering an era of where like bodybuilding's becoming great again. What I mean, I mean by that is in like it's getting more competitive. There's more good guys as an overall group than there is just a good top 10. Meaning it's getting harder to qualify for Olympia because the talent pool is greater. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to take away from any top 10 guys over the last few years. The top 10 guys are top 10 guys. I just feel that like it's getting kind of wild, you know? Like I just come back from France, saw Sergey win, massive individual, good V taper, small waist for such a large human being. It was nice to see that. Obviously, Quentin's amazing physique. It just seems like the quality of the overall open bodybuilding is growing. And there's a lot of open bodybuilders now, dude. Like I look
Absolutely.
at like how many shows there are and how many open guys are in the show. It's a lot.
Okay, but you were there in France. Tell me. I mean, I've just seen the video footage, so I couldn't really tell. I watched Sergey for a while. I was texting him back like weeks ago, and I basically told him like, yeah, one of these days is here in Olympia. I just didn't expect to be this first weekend, right? Was he that convincing in person?
Yes. I mean, like, and you know how it goes. And many people will always say, look at the pictures, look at the pictures, look at the pictures. Pictures don't mean shit unless you're there because a lot of the pictures I did see is not what I saw in person. There's
Okay.
some pictures that were close, but there were some that were just not. I honestly had Quentin winning because the amount of lines and structural, like he has a lot more lines than Sergey did. Sergey was bigger. You
Yeah.
could say Sergey was in better condition. Sergey had a good V taper, heavily muscled. And then Quentin had more lines, not quite as muscled, obviously in comparison, not quite as good condition, but you have that fucking crazy structure. And I could be probably biased towards Quentin because I've wanted Quentin to win so long. I have no problem with Sergey winning, but Sergey was impressive. He was massive backstage. When I saw him backstage, I was like, who in the hell is that guy?
All right. Well, let's get back to a topic now. I'm going to hit the nerve of everybody that is saying, "Oh, here he goes again. He's going to talk about the '90s and whatever." But I'll tell you, when I started competing in '80s, I was just blown away with Lee Haney's and Betty DeMays, Mike Christians, H. Gaspari, Lee Labrada, Brian Buchanan, all these guys, right? And then I watched the show '88 Olympia, and I was just floored. I mean, like, oh my god! And here I come in the '90s. I started competing '91, and every Olympia in the '90s, and I promise you, from '91, '93, all the way to '99, everybody, every single person on the stage was in top condition, and everybody was like, "God damn, where they're coming from." So I was blessed to make 10th 3 years in those 1990s, and I still think the 1990s were superior. You know, because we always talk about '90s conditioning, '90s aesthetics, '90s presentation, and all that stuff. Then we started drifting away. I do feel that nowadays, some new bodies, like Jordan that you work with, and newcomers are coming. By the way, I wanted to ask you about that Stefan guy because Stefan was kind of, favorite before coming in. Everything you see on Instagram is like, holy hell, right? But then maybe it didn't really translate on the stage, or maybe it did, but they just, what did you see?
Well, before we get into that, because that's a big
Mm,
topic,
mm,
let's
okay.
finish. I'm gonna respond to what you just said.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and say I agree that I thought the overall conditioning in the 90s is better than the overall conditioning today. I
Overall.
do believe, for whatever reason, because I've heard Steve Weinberger say this out of his mouth to me, this is a bodybuilding show. This isn't a condition show. Because I'll see some guys who are not quite conditioned, but full as a house win And then some guy's very beautifully aesthetic and fucking ripped and doesn't win. In my opinion, I always favor condition. I do.
I
That's how
know.
I prep my guys. I mean, listen, Hassan, whatever, he was fat on stage. I'm sorry. I was in France when he was doing his rear shots. There was fat jiggling on his butt
Yeah,
and
yeah,
his
yeah.
lower back. And like, yeah, he was massive. I don't think he should have been in the top 8. I really personally don't. Like muscle show, sure, but like bodybuilding, he was out of shape. Best shape he's been in a while, but like he was 6 weeks out. And like that, I mean, that's how I saw it. I was kind of like a little bit of not appalled, but kind of like shocked that like then we could pose and then have everything shake and jiggle and not a lot of lines, just full muscle bellies.
Yeah.
So
Well, Chris, also just let me interrupt you. I'm going to jump in because you are that aesthetic guy. You were always conditioned, and as a coach, I think your number one priority. You think like your responsibility is conditioning. Conditioning. This is the most important,
yeah, yeah.
and that's how you go. But as Steve Weinberger will tell you, and I told that story about Joe Weider telling me to my face, comparing my 94 Olympia when I was ripped dry to the bone. Like you could not be drier and leaner than I was, I
Oh,
promise.
so awesome.
But then I came back like fucking 20 pounds heavier and fuller, and my shape actually, started shining on the stage. And that new mass, it didn't really deteriorate my conditioning that much in my head, of course. And you as a judge, no, not judge, you as a coach, you would look like, you were drier here. But what I gained with this fullness and roundness, and now all of a sudden my upper body was catching up my legs because I'm so full and filled up. You know, uh, that's exactly Joe Wheeler telling me like this. You would be easily top 6, ripped to the bone, dried out, conditioning. I was 13th. Okay, and then I translated to many guys when I prepare. I look. Okay, guy has maybe a little bit smaller legs and maybe a little bit flattish chest. And if we push for conditioning, right? And those two things are going to reflect on the stage, it's not going to be nearly as good as if he's full there and legs are filled up. Things of that nature. Yes, I swear to God, I looked at myself with a disgust. Like,
Yeah.
my God, I'm so off. And here he goes, Joe Weider. I mean, he could not stop bragging, like, oh my God, Milos, why didn't you look like it? And then look at this Polaroid, look at that. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. So I saw exactly what he's saying. And now you hear this from Steve Weiberger, the best bodybuilding judge in the history of IFBB, I would say. Somebody that the judge tells and shows, and he knows. I and this goes back and forth. I mentioned this many times, and people can say, "Oh, Miller always repeats himself." But I'm a huge Lee Haney fan. In 91, when I competed with Lee Haney was stage, for me, that was untouchable, right? And I've seen Dorian Yates that year with him, and there was no contest. Really, there was zero contest. There was superiority all the way through. Now, I ask Steve Eimer because I heard before, he says his favorite physique of all time is Lee Haney. If he would want to look like anybody, he would want to look like Lee Haney. That's Steve. And then I asked him at the airport in Dubai, like 91 Lee Haney, 93 Dorian. And he didn't wait like microsecond. 93 Dorian. He says like that's not even human. I remember word by word. And then I rewatch it, and sometimes those people they put the 91 version of one guy and 93 whatever and compare. And then like I say, okay, if I'm really judging as a judge, and I have to consider everything. And I think for me, big part is conditioning. And Dorian is just that crazy goddamn condition ripped to the bone, right? And he has so much muscle mass, he has a width, he has a thickness. Yeah, I could see it. I could see it. So on that note, that Sergey, he beat beautiful physique. I mean, so that's like Dorian beating Sean Ray, Flex Wheeler, Kevin Lebroni, Chris Cormier, right? When you look at the physiques, Dorian is not in the same bracket with them. These guys are, so superior aesthetically, shapely, right? But it's still bodybuilding. And then if if judge is gonna award this one, God knows.
But, like, one thing I will say, which is weird, and I'm sure you noticed this too with physiques from the '90s to now, there was a lot more lines. Regardless of condition, more lines. Now I see physiques that are big, conditioned, and they're full, but there's not deep lines. Do you know what I'm talking about?
You know exactly what you're talking about. And then there's a lot of suspicion going on. And then they are questioning me. And I don't want to say it. They go, yeah, I destroyed my arms and calves with the certain injections, right? But muscle is striated. And when you're a teenager and you start training, they say, okay, you wait for muscle maturity. No. When you're a teenager and muscular and ripped, you're going to be fibrotic everywhere. You're going to have a
Right.
cross-threaded chest, holy shit, right? And this is not happening. So why is not happening? It's only one logical reason. Okay. And that's what they're doing. I mean, not to point fingers at who was on the stage. Even most beautiful physique over there on the stage didn't have those lines. And that physique with those lines, it would be unbeatable, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, in a nutshell, like, would you say though, like, back to our original conversation about like, I feel like the '90s had more lines. The '90s condition, you could say lines and condition was a little bit better than today.
Mhm.
Overall, a huge, crazy lineup. But I feel like there was a time where, the talent pool tends to do this. I just feel like now versus 3 years ago, overall, it's getting harder and harder, and the number of open competitors are much greater. Like, I mean, there was what, 20 plus competitors competing at Texas Pro in Tampa? Like, that's a lot of open bodybuilders
Yeah,
competing.
close to 30. In the last few shows, it was like close to 30, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I kinda agree with you. You touched the subject, and I love it. I mean, there's a lot of newcomers coming, and, they're bigger. I
yeah,
mean, Gaspari said we were bigger than '80s, yeah, and I was in '90s. Guys now are way bigger than the '90s. I mean, in average, when you look, uh manager Matt was talking to me like, "Oh, well, how do you explain that Lee Haney was competing like 245, 253, right? 5'11, and he was absolute monster, and he was absolute monster on the stage. And now Regan Grimes is same height, 265, and you can't really compare. And I don't know if you've seen that
yeah.
episode.
It's funny. It's weird, right?
Yeah, I mean that's like over 10 pounds extra, and then you still when you compare, you don't see it.
Do you
Uh,
like? Do you think it's Do you think growth hormone changes it?
I mean, I'm gonna tell you this funny thing. I don't know if I mentioned. Of course, back in '90s we used GH, but it was so expensive. So you use
Yeah,
two
you weren't
units
using
of
10
energy,
IU's a day.
4 units, maybe. But I gotta say it anyway. '93, I was at in Florida some show, and I heard somebody call my name from behind, but not really my name because nobody said Milos, but I respond to anything, Milos. So I turn around, and it was a Frank Zane. Frank Zane, my idol that I've never seen in my life, and he actually called me by my name, and I'm turning around, and then like, me, yeah, and then we start talking, So he said like, I had one of his favorite physique at this era and all this stuff. And then here I am. I said, like, well, Frank, I'm sure that if you guys back then did everything we're doing now, it would be different, right? You know what his response was? Did I
What?
tell you?
No.
What makes you think we didn't? Not just for him, but for everybody else that is listening. I mean, for me, bodybuilding, the most important muscle in bodybuilding is abs.
Yes.
Abs, flat
Yes.
stomach, small
Yes.
waist.
Yes.
So you have to start from that. Constantly keep it in. Everything else, anybody is going to appreciate way more if all this is there with a small waist.
Yes. A big waist looks terrible.
You can have all the muscle upstairs you want, and this is when people are posing, right? Can you try to make your chest look smaller if you try to? I mean, how are you going to make it so small? Or shoulders? I mean, you can drop them. Okay, you can make some mistakes, but they're so focused on, oh, I must pose my upper body correctly. No, this is going to be there. You just need a little push, right, and you're going to be there. But it's all in the stomach. I keep mentioning this like masterpiece of ab control was Hadi Chopin.
It's everything. Remember Arnold Hadi Chupin's core control?
Um,
Holy shit.
if Nick Walker has that control with this much muscle that he has, he's going to put the people in trouble.
He's
You know,
280 something pounds.
uh, I know. That comes to okay, how Dorian beat those beautiful physiques. Well, you know, it's still bodybuilding. It's still muscle mass. He looks freaky. How did Jay Cutler beat Sean and Kevin and Flex and Chris Cormier repeatedly? Right. I mean, so it's still mass means a lot. Come on, most of the guys are always trying to get bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. With the exception of maybe Samson now, because Samson grew so much, and everybody say you do not need to be 300 pounds, just condition. So he's going out for credit, but he can afford it, right? And many other guys still like, okay, when we look Regan Grimes, right? I love Regan, like a kid, and I always say he has such a potential, but he needed to be bigger,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So, so is many other guys. I tell you this. Okay, so here's the question: who do you think is your most favorite physique of all time? And which show did he showed up like that on?
I was in awe of Ronnie Coleman. What is it, 99 or 2000?
Yeah, no,
Was it
99.
Arnold? Was it Arnold? Arnold?
Yeah, 2001 Arnold, 98 Olympia. Okay, but yeah, I was thinking somebody else for you because you're a
And,
static guy.
and then for me, I think the other guy that I was just crazy about was Phil Heath in the very beginning.
Okay, so well then you didn't maybe follow 93 Arnold Classic Flex Wheeler. Holy shit. Have you seen
90.
93 Flex Wheeler? That's when, everybody said he was ripped to pieces, dry to the bone, even striated glutes, which was unheard of for Flex. It's Olympia. But
Oh, wait, this is Olympia? Wait.
Arnold Classic, look at that guy behind, standing relaxed, looking better than those guys posing.
Who's that?
I'm pissed off because I didn't make my abs better. Yeah. But 93 Arnold Classic. 93
I wonder why this isn't working.
Flex Wheeler Arnold
Because
Classic.
they're talking about 93 Rex Wheeler, Flex Wheeler.
Yeah.
How can I adjust this?
Well, you'll find it. I'm telling you. And that was, yeah, that's from that show, for example. Yeah.
Twisting shot.
Look at that. His biceps is bigger than his waist, right? And speaking of
Look at
tie
that lines in detail.
the detail that you're talking about, yeah.
My final decision about what I was talking about is I think the talent pool goes up and down over time. I do.
Mhm.
I still think the 90s overall had better lines. I don't think it's fact, had better lines. And it was very competitive, obviously, because you guys had less shows to qualify, right? I mean, it's the same guys all competing with a small number of shows. And then I feel like for a period, there's a lull of how many open bodybuilders were competing. And that's when the whole thing started with open bodybuilding's dying. It's dying. And now I feel like in the last 2 years, it's on the up and up and a lot. Like how many open competitors are at every local pro show is crazy. Crazy.
But I'm going to tell you something. 1991, my first show, I got to 3,000 for the third place. In San Jose Pro Invitation, there was 10,000 4,321. And that same prize money was 30 years later, up until a couple of years ago. And then they start increasing. So now, Chris, if you're an aspiring bodybuilder and you just got into the open and like, okay, in 2, 3, 4 years, I can be a deadly. Like 750,000 for the Arnold Classic, 600,000 for the Olympia, 140,000 in the Dubai, 100,000 in Pittsburgh, right? So now when you throw all the prize money, people have a reason
Yeah.
to put the foot on the gas.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. I don't know. I wish there's more money in bodybuilding. I mean, there should be. I follow Supercross as a motocross guy, and I was watching the Supercross Cup they had the other day, and if you win all 3 races, you get $1 million. but the best overall win gets $500,000. So in other words, overall meaning if you don't win all the motos, but your average is the best, you get
Yeah,
$500,000. But if you win all 3 races, you get $1,000,000 right there on the spot. And that's just one fucking race.
yeah.
You know? All right. Well, that was a good discussion. I just, overall, France, fun experience. There's a lot
Welcome
of
back. Welcome
yeah,
back.
yeah, lot of good physiques coming along. Stefan's physique is amazing. I wasn't, by any means bad mouthing by any means, but I just thought it didn't translate. Most Instagram pictures don't, so it's not just him. People post pictures all the time. And then you look at them on in person, you're like, oh, they're not that hard. They're not that grainy. They're not that big. And obviously when you stand next to somebody, it's a totally different situation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, on Instagram, he had a deepest, most prominent cross-striated chest I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that didn't show on
Yeah,
stage. The
yeah,
shadows capture it, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
All right, Milos. So I'm gonna
okay.
go, I'm gonna take off and I'll message you after the podcast.
All right.
All right, take care.